Shaquille O'Neal wasn't just the most dominant force the NBA had ever seen. He was a storm in sneakers, a 7-foot supernova of strength, pride, and memory. To most players, basketball is competition. To Shaq, it was something closer to combat, a test of toughness, of manhood, of who owned the paint. He didn't just dunk on you, he destroyed you, and then he let you know, again and again and again. But the real engine behind Shaq's dominance, it wasn't just size, it was resentment. He played with joy, but also with fury. He was funny on camera, but brutal on the court. Every slight, every insult, every name said in the same breath as his. Shaq heard it, logged it, filed it away, until the next time you crossed the lane, and he crossed you off the floor. Some players use hate as fuel. Shaq thrived on it. You could be a teammate, a rival, a role player. If you disrespected Shaq, or worse, if he thought you did, he made you pay. This isn't a story about rivalries. This is about grudges. 6 players who triggered the wrath of a giant. Not just beaten, but punished. Welcome to Game 7 Stories. This is top 6 players Shaquille O'Neal hated the most. Kobe Bryant, brother, rival, enemy. No name on this list is more complicated than Kobe Bryant. To the world, they were a legendary duo. 3 titles, countless highlights, a dynasty in purple and gold. But behind the banners was a power struggle. Shaq was already the man. Kobe wanted to be, and neither was willing to bow. Shaq was force. Kobe was fire. Shaq wanted dominance. Kobe wanted control. And their collision? It wasn't just inevitable, it was nuclear. Shaq called Kobe selfish. Kobe called Shaq lazy. They fought in practice, traded shots in interviews, and yet they kept winning. 3 straight championships from 2000 to 2002. But after every ring, the tension tightened. In 2004, it finally snapped. Shaq was traded to Miami, and from that moment, the war went public. Shaq dropped a diss track. Kobe, tell me how my taste. Kobe dropped 81 points.
Kobe, tell me how my taste.
They didn't speak, didn't reconcile, not until years later. In 2009, they shared an All-Star MVP. In 2011, they sat down on live TV and laughed. For the first time in years, they joked about the past, acknowledged the damage, but even then, the fire hadn't completely cooled. When Kobe tragically passed in 2020, Shaq broke down on live television. The feud faded, but the pain, it remained. I should have called him. I should have told him I loved him. Because some rivalries are just that, rivalries. But this one? This was family. And sometimes the deepest hate comes from those we needed most. Charles Barkley. When jokes turn violent. Today, they're basketball's odd couple. Shaq and Chuck. The banter, the roasts, the viral moments. But rewind the clock. Before the cameras, before the punchlines, and the jokes weren't jokes. It was December 1999, Lakers versus Rockets. A regular season game until it got personal. Shaq got the ball in the post. Barkley hammered him with a hard foul. Shaq turned and barked. Barkley. He grabbed the ball and launched it at Shaq's head. The benches cleared. Fists were thrown. But this wasn't about that night. This was years in the making, because Barkley had always been loud about Shaq. On TV, in print, in interviews, he called Shaq out for being out of shape, lazy, uncoachable, wasting his potential. If I had his body, I'd have 10 rings. Shaq heard it all, and he didn't let it go. Charles is a clown, jealous, never won anything. To Barkley, it was just honesty. To Shaq, it was disrespect with a smile. And that's worse. They were total opposites. Chuck shot from the hip. Shaq burned slow and struck hard. And when 2 giants clash, there's no middle ground, just impact. Eventually, time did its thing. They aged. They sat behind a desk instead of trading elbows. But even now, you can feel it. Barkley pokes the bear because he can. Shaq laughs. Sometimes. Other times, the stare is a little too cold, because behind all the jokes, there's history. And Shaq, he never forgot who threw that ball. And Chuck never forgot who tried to take his head off. David Robinson. The silent disrespect. David Robinson wasn't a villain. He didn't talk trash. He didn't throw elbows. He didn't even raise his voice. But to Shaquille O'Neal, he was public enemy number 3. Why? Because of a story. Shaq claimed that as a teenager in San Antonio, he once approached Robinson for an autograph and was coldly rejected. That moment, Shaq said, lit a fire he'd never put out. Every time they matched up, Shaq attacked like he had something to prove. He mocked Robinson in interviews, called him soft, dismissed his MVP season. He's a nice guy, that's his problem. But here's the truth, that autograph story, it never happened. Years later, Shaq admitted he made it up. Because sometimes, Shaq didn't wait for disrespect. He manufactured it. If reality didn't give him a reason to rage, he'd invent one. Robinson was everything Shaq wasn't. Disciplined, polished, humble, and in Shaq's mind, that wasn't admirable. It was offensive. He couldn't relate to it, couldn't respect it, and so, he punished it. What Robinson saw as sportsmanship, Shaq saw as weakness. What Robinson didn't do, trash talk, show off, fight back, made Shaq hate him more. Because when a man stands across from you and doesn't engage, doesn't react, doesn't fear you, sometimes that's worse than any insult. Greg Ostertag, the one he tried to kill. Greg Ostertag wasn't a superstar. He wasn't even a threat. But somehow, he managed to make Shaquille O'Neal snap. The year was 1997. The Utah Jazz were contenders. The Lakers were raising. And Ostertag decided to talk. Before a regular season game, he told reporters, "Shaq's not that hard to guard. He's overrated." Shaq heard it, and that was all he needed. During the game, he didn't just go to work, he went to war. He dunked on Ostertag repeatedly, talked after every play, stared him down like prey. But the real moment came after the buzzer. In the tunnel, Shaq spotted Ostertag walking by. No crowd, no cameras, just 2 men. And Shaq punched him, hard, right in the head. No warning, no hesitation, just a retaliation. The NBA handed him a suspension, but Shaq didn't show remorse. He felt disrespected by someone he didn't even think belonged in his orbit. Who is Greg Ostertag to talk about me? This wasn't a rivalry. It wasn't personal. It was territorial. Shaq viewed the paint like a kingdom. And Ostertag, he was trespassing. Some players tried to beat Shaq with skill. Ostertag tried with words. And in Shaq's world, that was worse. Because if you disrespected him, it didn't matter if you were an MVP or a bench warmer. The response was always the same. Pain, Dwight Howard, the wannabe Superman. Some rivalries are born on the court. Others are born on a stage, wearing a cape. The moment Dwight Howard flew through the air in the 2008 dunk contest, donning a red cape and flashing that bright smile, a line was crossed. To fans, it was a tribute. To Shaq, it was treason. That name, Superman, was sacred. Shaq had built it, owned it, defined it. It wasn't a gimmick. It was a symbol of dominance, of fear, of a man who broke backboards. And now this goofy grinning kid was wearing it like a Halloween costume? Shaq didn't laugh. He attacked. He questioned Dwight's game. He's got no post moves. All he does is dunk. Don't compare him to me. Ever.
I'm just saying, if all you gotta do is win a dunk contest to be called Superman, don't call me that no more.
And the comparisons kept coming. Dwight was big, athletic, charismatic. A new era's version of Shaq, or so the media said. That lit the fire. Things escalated in 2012 when Dwight joined the Lakers. He wore the jersey Shaq made famous, played in the arena Shaq built, tried to be the new face of the franchise. And Shaq, he didn't hold back. He's a clown, a pretender. I earned my rings. He wants to skip steps. Even in 2020, when Dwight finally won a title as a role player with the Lakers, Shaq didn't congratulate him, didn't acknowledge him, barely said his name. Because to Shaq, this wasn't about stats. It was about identity, legacy, and a name he bled for. Dwight wore the cape, but he never carried the weight. And in Shaq's world, there is only one Superman. Everyone else is just playing dress-up. Player 6, Scottie Pippen, the unexpected shot. Scottie Pippen was never supposed to be on Shaquille O'Neal's radar. They weren't rivals. They didn't play the same position. They barely crossed paths in their primes. But all it took was one sentence. In the early 2000s, during a TV appearance, Pippen made an offhand comment. Kobe was the real MVP of those Lakers championships. To most people, it was a hot take. To Shaq, it was an attack on his legacy. And attacks on legacy? That's personal. He responded with venom, mocked Pippen's leadership, said he was nothing without Jordan. Don't talk to me about finals MVPs when you never had one. Shaq didn't stop there. He brought it up again years later, used it as fuel in podcasts, interviews, and social media jabs. It wasn't about basketball anymore. It was about principle. Because to Shaq, Pippen broke an unwritten rule. You don't downplay a big man's dominance to boost a guard, especially when that big man carried 3 straight finals on his shoulders. Pippen probably forgot the quote. Shaq never did. Because in his mind, respect is everything. And disrespect, even once, gets remembered forever. Shaquille O'Neal wasn't just a dominant force. He was a vault. He kept track of every quote, every slight, every smirk. And when the time came, he cashed it in. Some players use stats to measure greatness. Shaq used memory. He didn't forget. He didn't forgive. And he never let you live it down. Whether it was a teammate stealing the spotlight, a role player running his mouth, or a legend speaking out of turn, Shaq remembered it all. He was charisma on camera, but a wrecking ball in sneakers. A force of dominance fueled not just by size, but by fire. This was never just about basketball. It was about pride, respect, and the cost of crossing a giant. This has been Game 7 Stories. Subscribe for more tales of grudges, glory, and greatness. And remember, you could beat Shaq in a game, but if you disrespected him, you were already on the list.